Welcome to Advocating with the Best in the Biz. I'm your host, Solomon Oyemi, aka Solly, and today we are sitting with a writer, an activist, a modern griot, creator of a sound, co-creator and executive producer of Black Woman Rock. 5-time, I'm going to say this twice, 5-time Apollo winner consecutive, which was unheard of until you carved that path. Man, owner of More Black Press Publishing, which she is the publishing hub for many great writers. She's received countless awards for her community work and founder of her own literacy foundation. Man, in addition, her contributions to the hip-hop world has brought a smooth fusion of the poetry and music of the Detroit Midwest sensibility. Her work is in the Smithsonian, y'all. She is a mother, not just to her son, but to the many sons and daughters she's touched through her eloquent words and pushing the boundaries of the writing game. I'm talking about Detroit's own Jesse James, Jessica Care Moore.
What up, though, Solomon? That's such a great intro. You're so sweet. I'm all warm and tingly from your tea. So I'm so excited to have you in my home. So welcome to the D.
Thank you for talking to me today. We are flitted up in the spot today.
Listen, you know? I've been seeing you all summer, though. So you were like the few people I've seen on a consistent basis, throughout the pandemic in Yellow Spring. So, yeah, it's just family. So, good to see you in another city.
Hey, it's good to see you in your city, in your home, and literally sitting, being able to talk. I have my face shield. We've been quite vigilant about staying socially distant and keeping everything right. You know what I mean? Well, man, off top, I want to ask you, how did you get started in writing and performing?
Well, writing, I started when I was like 9. I think I was really into V.C. Andrews' books, strangely enough, and I was a quick reader, a speed reader. I still read pretty fast, and my mother had biographies and memoir in her house. So we didn't have a lot of fiction, but mom was a hippie, you know what I mean? She had like Janis Joplin's biography, Jimi Hendrix biography, memoirs about, Dan Rather and like news people. It's interesting kind of and that's still what she reads now is like memoirs.
Interesting biographical thing.
Yeah, just interesting because that's and it completely influenced me because I think it's probably shaped me becoming a journalist first and being interested in telling people's stories. And so I was a little girl, I was writing, and I got into high school. I found this incredible thing called the Black Box Theater. Okay. And, I was really quiet. I was in predominantly white Catholic schools. To say I'm quiet was funny, but I was. Not at home, not on my block, but
outside,
at school.
Yeah, school.
School quiet, 1st through 8th grade, predominantly white Catholic school. And so I went to Cody High School.
Cody?
Yeah, on the west side, Frank Cody High School. And that was a really important shift for me to go to a public school with black kids. And I needed, there was a comfort level that I felt. First of all, I was terrified. But then when I found, and I was an athlete, so sports saved me first. And then I was still a super nerd, English classes, creative writing classes. I was already a natural writer. But the Black Box Theater is what got me open. My Susan Story, my drama coach, brought For Color Girls into that Black Box Theater, and my mind got blown. And I was like, what is this?
This is a space where I could make anything, When I lived in New York as a kid, I actually did some courses at Lehman College at the Black Box Theater there.
Yes.
So, and trust me, I understand totally where they just take a space and just turn it, curate that space into any world that you want it to be.
So it was amazing to me. And the writing of Ntozake Shange, who became, one of my literary heroes, and then later one of my friends and someone that I read with on a consistent basis in New York City and got to know very well before she passed away. That, I never dreamed that possible. I'm just a little girl reading Ntozake's work and looking at For Color Girls like, oh my God, listen to this writing. Because people were talking about gangster rap back then. And I was like, I have never heard anything more gangster than Ntozake.
Right.
And I was like, y'all, I don't know what y'all talking about. Because this writing, because I was a hip hop baby, so I loved Public Enemy and Run DMC and KRS-One, MC Lyte, Queen Latifah. So I loved all those people too. But there was something in the poetry because I found Ntozake and then I found Lucille Clifton and I found Audre Lorde and I found Detroit's Nami Law Magic and I found Hakeem Adabuti and Tony Sanchez.
So
and
the rabbit hole just opened.
Oh, just open. I was just like, and it's really unfortunate that it has to happen that way, you know. And so now I've been, I'm 25 years later, and it's been a lot. The story has been pretty rich.
Well, I mean, you spoke of some of these people. You know, everyone has influences coming up to shape their foundation about what art is, and who inspired you at a young age to be heard. You know what I mean? Who inspired you to broaden that horizon of being heard?
Interesting. So my first public reading was at my father's funeral.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, my daddy died in 1994, and he was like absolutely my hero. And so I've been writing poetry, and I was reading on the open mics. And when he passed, I was asked by the family. They said, "Why don't you write a poem for him?" And they knew I was writing. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Okay." And I wrote it. I couldn't write it until the very morning of his funeral. I wrote it down, and I wrote a poem called "Breeze." And the response was so overwhelming. But I'm like, well, this is my family. My dad has died.
They like me.
They love me. Maybe they're just being nice
right,
to me.
They love me.
But one of my uncles, Uncle Harry, who's passed on now, Harry Taylor, was like, your poem is really good. He's like, do you have copies of that? You should give out copies of that. He said, it's not a normal poem. It was really good. Mm-hmm. So he said that to me. And I was like, oh, okay, great. That was 94. By 95... I was living in New York City. It's changed fast. And so my father's passing kind of propelled me into me being more fearless on microphones. And I decided after that moment, maybe I'll start reading. And so Detroit is not New York, right? No, right. And I don't want it to be. But it didn't have all these open mics. It didn't have... So I started reading poems at hair shows, okay? Like, really at hair shows with sisters with birds in their hair. And I was coming out and I was reading my poem. Right. And clubs. Mm-hmm. I was wherever. And then hip-hop spots. So, I came up, Maurice Malone's hip-hop shop where, DJ Dez, not DJ Dez, of course, but DJ Head, mm-hmm. DJ Rowe, DJ Sabotage, kind of regular in-house DJs.
Dez had actually mentioned the Rhythm Kitchen. Oh, even before, was it the Rhythm Kitchen?
Oh, Rhythm Kitchen. I was reading there too. He was spinning there. All the hip-hop, DJs were there spinning, same Dez. Sab, mm-hmm. DJ Rowe and Tony Tone, House Shoes, all of them. And so I was the poet on the scene at the time. Paul Rosenberg, we called him Paul Bunyan then, became
so they're
Eminem's
from
manager.
Here.
Oh, Paul's from Detroit. I went to Michigan State with Paul. He was my first lawyer. Wow. In New York City. Shout out to Paul Rosenberg and Shady Records. That's right. So we were all family. And so we were just like little rugrats running around. Some of us were MCs. He was a rapper. Paul was a rapper. He was an MC too. And so, so I was just breaking through that scene as a poet and a mm-hmm. woman. Mm-hmm. And I used to wear Maurice Malone baggy jeans and big old T-shirts covering up my body and stuff. Mm-hmm. And just so I could get the respect on the mic. But at the hip-hop shop, I helped run the hip-hop shop. So, and we had Proof had hosted the open mic at the hip hop shop. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, where the Rhythm Kitchen was like a party. And then we would have, of course, the open mic there too. Mm-hmm. But the hip hop shop had I think it was a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. It's an afternoon open mic. It's crazy. And we would all just be packed in there hanging out on 7 Mile.
Yes, Cat used to tell me about that, Fat Cat.
Yes. I love him.
Fat Ray used to tell me about that.
Yes.
All of it, they said that was really just the hub. And I knew that as well. Because, I was in Cincinnati.
Right.
And during that time that you guys were going through the Rhythm Kitchens and those shows, we were also having a Scribble Jam in Cincinnati. And a lot of those artists that were coming from those sessions would come to battle at the Scribble Jam in Cincinnati.
Jam, I like the name.
Well, that's where Eminem got his claim to fame because he lost there, but then that got him to go to the Rap Olympics.
Got you.
Something like that. It's like, that
he's
got
such a quiet guy, I've seen him, but I was very close with Proof, was one of my best friends back in them days. And he was actually supposed to drive me to New York and flight to me at the last minute. I've been mad at him ever since. Anyway, I love him, so I miss him so much. And such a good person, big personality, such a talent.
Everybody that I've met from Detroit that knows him, love him. Like, I know Crescenta.
Yeah.
And, they were, all of them were real close. Dez, all of them were close. Family. So, it just really showed me, he definitely was the glue.
Man, he was a good guy. And so was John Doe. So was Dylan.
True that.
He was my definite friend. He's one of the first producers to work with me on a track. Like, I don't know where that is, but we recorded on the east side of his mother's house. I remember going up to JD and being like, yo, I want to put some poems over some beats. And he was like, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, because a lot of producers would be like, I don't know, or that's not going to get on the radio, or blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah. And I don't know, we played around on the east side, and I'm not sure, we never did anything substantial, but that was before he went to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to New York and became friends with all the people that were my same community, you know, the same people.
Speaking about that, you know,
Yeah.
I said, you know, at a young age, you left Detroit, went to New York, you joined the new exodus of artists that came to the city in search of that American dream, you know.
Right.
How was your introduction to the scene in New York in the mid-90s? Because did that lead to the Apollo?
Yeah.
While you were, okay.
Absolutely. So I moved to New York, and I packed up my Ford pickup truck, my purple Ford pickup, and Proof was supposed to drive me. My girl Charlotte ended up coming through at the last minute.
Wow.
To drive me to Brooklyn, and things changed for me very fast. I was there 5 months. I jumped on the poetry scene, so I had the New Eurekan Poetry Aloud anthology, and I was literally looking for the poets. I was looking for Reggie Gaines and Paul Beatty and Kevin Powell, Willie Perdomo. I had read In the Tradition, which Kevin Powell and Raz Baraka edited. So I'm in Detroit. I'm this baby in Detroit, this little young poet, just sucking up all the energy of poetry, seeing what's happening in New York. And everyone was like, Jessica, you should go to Brooklyn. You should go to New York. And I was like, because I was busy in Detroit, doing all I could do in Detroit at the time. And I was like, all right, and my father's passing, I think, just propelled me, because my daddy wouldn't have let me go to New York by myself. So my daddy wasn't here, and my mother couldn't stop me.
Right.
So it was just a wrap. I was like, I'm in Brooklyn, like, what up, dog?
So this is up to God, and I'm doing it.
Listen,
So.
Brooklyn Moon Cafe was just getting its start, and it was on. It was, you know, Saul Williams there, Erykah Badu there. That's where I met Dante, who everyone knows now is Yassine Bey. That's where I met Kweli at Nkuru Books in '95.
And that's what I was going to speak on.
Yeah,
he
was working at Nkuru at the time.
Yeah, he was at Nkuru. You know, you forged an awesome relationship with Kweli. You know,
Oh,
it spilled into releases of projects, you know, working, collaborating with Devotee, you know, traveling the world, really making it happen. And, you know, how impactful has this relationship been to pushing the poetry spoken word genre in the forefront?
It's been the relationship with
the Kweli and Devotee, because it kind of is
Steve, because that's a friendship. You know what I mean? The thing is, like, you know, me and Kweli been artists, you know, knowing each other forever. Same with most, right? Like, we met each other when none of us were signed. He was working at a bookstore. I won the Apollo. So I became more famous before them, to be honest.
Okay. That's what I'm figuring.
I was famous first. Yeah, I was famous first. I think they would admit to that. Dante, or Yassine Bey, was doing Cosby Mysteries at the time. Yep. Him and I became very close too. Like, those brothers, I loved them so much. I talked to them on a regular basis, and so no one had blown up, but I had done the Apollo. So that's why Saul Williams lived around the corner from me, and he brought his manuscript over, because I had done the Apollo, and I was like, became very well known overnight. Because at that time the Apollo was hosted by Steve Harvey. It was on 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
So I didn't know. So my life changed really fast, Solomon. Like, I went from not knowing how to get around on the trains. I was literally still learning the trains. I've been in New York for 5 months. Listen, I was still figuring out the trains to get to Brooklyn, to get to Harlem, to get to the Bronx, the 5 boroughs. And I walk outside, and I'm walking past, like, I think it was Jizza and different members of the Wu-Tang were, like, doing the thing. And they were like, yo, you that poet from the, like, Wu-Tang. I was
that's
like.
What you knew. You was like, oh. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, all of them. I mean, that led to a lot of things. My first recording with Antonio Hart, who was on, he did a beautiful saxophone player, his record, Here I Stand. So that's like my first kind of professional recording was with him. So I always make sure to credit him. But my first hip-hop recording happened because of Nas, you know, in 1999, when I opened and closed Nostradamus. So, you know, when I did my professional appearance on the Apollo, because I won 5 weeks in a row. Everybody was like, what just happened? I mean, the news went struck through the poetry scene, like, yo, Jessica is winning the Apollo, because I did not think I was going to win the Apollo. I was like, I went there with a rap skirt. I would have dressed better. I was like, I'm just going my little rap skirt, and Brandy was there, Paul Mooney was there. it was such a beautiful energy, and Steve Harvey then was going crazy.
Listen, for younger people that are listening to this interview, just understand something. Social media was not around. If you were on the Apollo, you were on the world stage.
I was on the world stage,
And you know, publications, you were on the world stage. And you were actually, that's the only outlet that we had. Soul Train.
That's it.
Apollo. Yeah. You know, it's only certain things that we had to be able to, you know, like, show the experience.
And I went viral before there was viral, right? And that's what I tried. I was like, I would love to see some of these independent artists, you know, who think they stuff don't stink to be able to make it without Facebook and Instagram. I said, we didn't have any of these tools to get to audience. And here I am, though, the Apollo I didn't know was being broadcasted in the UK. Yeah. So that's how I got my first European tour, because I became the girl from the Apollo.
I said, oi, you girl from the Apollo.
Yeah. Right. And they've been UK's been bringing me ever since. You know, they can't get rid of me. And so, so that's how my first European tour started. I was on tour with Paul Beatty, actually, and Jonesy D, wonderful MC. I was my first European tour. Yeah, we just did a collaboration during the pandemic. You know, we made a film together, Our Bodies Back. So it's been a blessing, but New York was a whirlwind experience. Like, the Apollo changed kind of everything. So I had to figure out as an artist, and I was very serious at 22. I turned down Sony, Elektra. Really? Yeah, I turned down 3 record deals after the Apollo. I had Chuck Sutton was my manager. I mean, I had a lot very fast, but I didn't come to New York to blow up. I actually was already somebody, and I knew that. Yep. And I think that's the difference. Like, you're talking about Kweli. I remember when me and Kweli, you know, years later. I mean, because we have a friendship. The friendship is a friendship. I was there when when Black Star became Black Star. I was like at all the shows. I was there for all of it and watching it unfold and just going, look at my friends getting famous on here. I watched Erica become famous. You know, it was just cool. Like, watching people who were like sincerely talented, but in the mid 90s, something opened up in the industry for some different kind of voices to push through. It really did. And I'm a poet who was a part of that. That thing that happened, man. I call it the Roaring 90s.
It really was. And I was going to say, you know, when we first met at Thought Forums.
It's crazy. That's crazy. Thought Forums Underground.
Mid-late 90s, us, Imani Uzuri, shouts out to
Queen.
Neptown, you know what I'm saying? Queen. A few others who performed. But this particular show, this is the first time me and my group at Universal Dialect had ever been to New York.
Wow. So
as a show.
Right.
You performed, Imani performed, a couple other people performed, and then Yasin Bey walks in the door. It walks most definitely.
The takeover begins.
And literally, before we got on the mic, they let him go on, and he commenced.
I was there. I remember that.
30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
We were like, yes and no.
He was a star, you know. Like, it's so funny. Even when I met him on the open mic, you know, his personality was so big. You know, I knew that he would transcend that scene quickly. You know, and he's gone on to do wonderful things. And I'm really proud of them. Proud to be connected to. You know, it's funny because people ask me about new hip hop and I'm still kind of stuck in the 90s.
Like, it was stuck in the vibe. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with being stuck in a good vibe.
I mean, I like some of the new people. Like, I mean, I like Rhapsody. You know what I mean? A lot. I love her, and I love Kendrick. You know, there's not that many though that I can be like. Whereas in the 90s, I could just go on and on. I could just and I was Mutulu and Stick from Dead Prez were on the scene with us. Yep. Common was on the scene with us. He was in Chicago, but he was definitely in New York City with us. And he had is that a black girl named Becky? Is that
black girl named Becky.
Yeah, it was his band. I mean, I've been loving Rashid's work for a long time, and so he's family, and so it's just. I just still love those people because they're consistent artists.
And genuine people. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to be consistent, but it's one thing to be genuine and consistent.
Oh, it's good,
you know what I'm saying?
People.
As a friend. Just like, you know, just good people in nature. You
and quality, man. Like, you know, it's one thing for, like, you know, people, you have a lot of guy friends, right? But very few of them are like, you know, they're like, oh, I like your poems, but nobody's like, well, let me put some money in. Let me put some money into that.
There it is.
So that's what Talib. That's what he did because he knows I've been working with rock and rolls in New York. I got on the rock scene there, so because poetry scene was cool, but I needed more.
Similar to the punk scene to a certain at that time, I think. Similar to the punk scene, similar to the Detroit, like the techno scene.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's all fringe outside of the main.
Exactly.
Thing, you know?
And I'm a fringe kind of artist in that way, where I mean, it just became where the poetry scene wasn't enough. And I wanted, and that's why I met Imani Azuri, Tamar Kali, and I got to see these sisters who were like conjuring rock and roll and funk and blues, and I was like, I want some of that. I want some of that wrapped around my poems, and drum and bass was real big then, and so I was like rapping. You know, I was with like Mark Gilmore was playing drums for me, and different drummers. I had Swiss Chris, and they could just get inside my poem in a way that everybody couldn't, and so music became what I was trying to, and Quality knew that I was trying to do that for a long time to get it right. I didn't want to just throw my poems over a hip hop beat. Even when I did with Nas, that's Oladaro, that's his father playing. You know, respectfully, but it's not what I want to even do with my voice. Like, you know, people tend to make poets kind of like artsy and in space, and I was like, no, I want a banger under my.
They put them in a box. They definitely still, because they may not know how big the genre is and what all facets of the genre.
Oh, they don't now, and now that we've had the sister, you know, doing the poem at the inaugural, that's been the interesting conversation among poets of my generation, where it's like, well, yeah, she's a fantastic young poet. I was like, but she's not like, no, the only one.
Well,
she's a daughter of us.
We're gonna bring her back up because I did want to bring that up.
Yeah,
definitely. You founded More Black Press.
Yes, 1997.
In 1997, you released The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth.
Yeah, my first book.
And it released many books by different authors.
Yes.
Saul Williams, Ross Baraka, to name a few.
Yeah. Asha Bandeli.
Yeah. How important were these collaborative releases for the Black experience and for the spoken word poetry market?
You know, I know that I didn't realize how well I was doing as an independent book publisher until I got my deal with HarperCollins. So, you know, my 5th book came out, you know, in 2020. We Want Our Bodies Back, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Yeah. But before that, I have 4 books already on More Black Press. But Saul's book, my books, Raz Baraka's book, Asha's book, Danny Simmons' first book of poetry and paintings, very expensive book to do. Love the Simmons family. Shout out to the Simmons. Right. Yes, including Run. But it's a thankless job publishing. It's hard work. You know, you put a lot of work. So I was really pushing. It wasn't about spoken word. It was really me trying to push Black poets of my generation onto books, into
published,
bookstores.
Like actually in hardback in the stores.
Bookstores. And I wanted to push it for literacy's sake and to make sure that we were taught. I said, I was trying to tell the poets then and saying, listen, if we don't publish books, and because shame on us, and because the white publishing houses weren't publishing us then. They publish us now. They weren't publishing us then. No. And I definitely got turned down by a whole bunch of people before I started my press. And I was like, why am I caring about what these publishers think? I never cared about what they thought. I know I have an audience. I'm traveling all over the world. I bet you I'm about to make this book. I'm from Detroit. I'm about to sell these books and flip them. And I sold like 20,000 copies of my first of Words Don't Fit in My Mouth, which I did not know was good. So I'm assuming... Because I don't know the market. I'm just doing it.
Just doing it.
And I'm just doing like thousand copies of books, and I'm just like, I'm thinking that if I'm selling 20, then people with book deals are selling 100,000 copies, and so then I realized that nobody sells that. Nobody sells that, and I didn't know.
It's the long game.
It's the long game. So you know, I took on Saul's book. And then MTV Pocket Books reached out to him soon after because they came to some of my readings. I was a journalist by trade, so I knew how to write a press release. I knew how to promote and market. I used to have my book release events were like packed, standing room only, right? So that's why I was like, let's go. Let's make you the hockey of our generation. So shout out to Saul Williams for like believing in the young black girl publisher. You know, I was 23, 24, maybe when I published this book. You know, I didn't even know I was young. It was we just rocking. Like, let's go.
Let me tell you, like, this particular book.
Oh, yeah. Raz's book is beautiful. Black Girls Learn Love Hard.
This is a politician, y'all. You know, this is like, you know.
He's a poet.
He's a poet. But I'm saying, like, the pivot that he's made.
I'm so proud of him.
Is just amazing.
His dad is smiling.
What?
Yeah.
And his sister is smiling.
Yeah, Shawnee. That's who the book is for.
I know. And you know, I went to JCSU. I went to Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte when I first graduated from high school.
Okay.
So, you know, I was friends with Shawnee. You know, she played
basketball.
She played what? She was like...
You see her on the cover, right?
Yeah, she's on the cover. Yes.
That's a Ronaldo Davison painting. That was my first time using a collage piece. I always have paintings on the covers of More Black Press books. So, yeah, that's a special one.
You know, I saw this book, you know, and I didn't know she had passed.
What?
When I first purchased this book from you, I did not know she had passed. And then, you know, when I read his feelings and his grieving process, you know, realized how important writing was, you know, for one's soul and mental health. You know what I'm saying? Can you speak on the therapeutic properties of writing? You know what I mean?
I'd be in jail if I wasn't writing poetry, you know? Like, it really keeps me centered. There's a lot, my poetry is not always butterflies and sunshine and flowers. You know, I write about real things. And I think that the pain of this pill called America, the thing we have to swallow often, is difficult. And so the art, you know, thank God for the gift of being able to put it on page, to be able to speak it out loud, to be able to paint it, to be able to dance it in our bodies, however we get it out, whether you're an MC or a dancer or a DJ, like we're able to say, yeah, we got this thing that we've been given, but we're going to flip it and make it something beautiful. I mean, Entezaki has this great quote, and I'm probably misquoting it, says, you have to learn the language in order to destroy it. So I enjoy, like, you know, this is the oppressor's language, but, you know, I've taken it and made it my own. And that's what we do as Black poets, that we reinvent this thing called language, and we make it something full of love, you know. So I have a deep love for my community, my people. I mean, it's all in my work, you know what I mean? It's all in my work, you know. And there's other writers and poets who come up the tutelage of people like Sonia Sanchez, you know, who I speak to on a regular basis now. She's beaming and bright at 86. She's amazing, you know, and she really keeps me grounded. I remember, you know, because I've been an independent publisher for a long time, an artist, and that's all I know. I don't know about people taking care of me. Like when Kweli did that for me, like, that was the first time anybody ever did anything for me like that.
It's like you were able to take a breath, like just a little bit, just a little bit, because you wanted to get the work started.
I was just in shock that somebody would like. I was like, "What do you mean you're gonna shoot videos for me? And you're gonna get the designer to design the album cover? Like, I'm so used to doing everything for myself. Exactly. So to the death, me and that brother, like I love him for that, and he's you know, because it's one thing when, you know, because brothers always want to flirt with me and say cute things to me, and oh yeah, Jessica, blah blah blah. But no, you know, it's just a different level of friendship when you're like, I remember I did the album in Detroit. John Dixon produced it. The album was done. I was in Brooklyn at Tyler's crib, like letting him hear it, like I would let him hear anything.
He was just like, "What are you doing with this?"
That was with the exact words.
I know, my man. What were you doing with this?
And I was like, "What are you gonna do with it?" And I went to Atlanta, I had some shows in ATL. He called me. He's like, "Yo, what's up? Can I sign you to my record label?" And I was like, "Yeah. I mean, whatever, man. Like, sure. Otherwise, I'm gonna put it out myself, you know."
As a matter of fact,
Black Tea,
the Legend of Jesse James was the first full-length album release and gave the world an eye into the mind of a Detroit native and the journey it took to get heard and respected.
That's my heart, man.
Wide, y'all.
Yeah. Black Tea, y'all can still get it.
Yes, you can, you know. Yes, you can.
And that's my homage to Gil Scott Heron, you know, who was my hero and one of my mentors.
Yeah.
I love Baba Gil. If people don't know who Gil Scott Heron is, you know, like, first of all, just shame on you, and then Google him and find him, because he was a very important part of my history, and a lot of us, you know, because we always talk about the new and the ones that come after, and it's important that we are part of a continuum. So I always call the names of my elders, because they, you know, we're not doing nothing under the sun, right? Like, it's all been done before. It's all been said before. Like Nikki Giovanni, you know, it's just wrote this beautiful new book, you know, Make It Rain. Like, she's got a new book out in her 70s. Like, you don't stop. When you're a poet, you know, you get better as you get older. It's not one of those genres. It is different, I think, with hip-hop, where people think you get older and you can't make art anymore. Right. It's just so ridiculous, right? Such an ageist, entertainment industry is so ageist, especially with women, right? And I'm like, I'm about to put my first rock record out. I'm performing. Me and Stephanie Krishana doing my rock and roll record this year. We're recording with full band.
Shouts to Stephanie. Stephanie Krishana. Inner City. What? I love.
You should do an interview with her. She's here.
We gonna link with her.
We singer Inner City.
It's gonna be on the next comeback. We gonna be back here doing a few.
Okay, yeah. Stephanie's amazing. I heard her voice. Her voice makes me cry. It's so good. And
her now she is the performer, like,
she's Tina Turner.
What? There you go.
She's Tina Turner. I mean, she's like our version of Tina Turner. But Black Women Rock, you know, which we haven't talked about, but my concert I've been doing for 16 years is for all the Stephanies of the world. And they, you know, Kimberly Nicole and Joy, who just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Joy. You know, Sate and Divinity Rocks, Imani Zuri. I mean, there's countless women who have done the show, Yazara, Julie Dexter,
I was going to say,
Nick West.
Black women rock, it's become its own movement and its own brand, period. What I'm saying?
Big. Daughters of Betty.
Can you talk about how that got started and, like, what are the plans in the post-COVID time?
Yeah, it's been, so 2004, I was producing for the National Black Arts Festival. I was on a young producers team. And the festival, at that time, National Black Arts Festival was one of the baddest festivals in the country. Everyone came, literary artists, theater artists, dancers. And I wanted to bring something different to the festival. And I had come from New York City, and here I am in Atlanta with lots of soul artists. Like Jason Orr's doing fucking funk jazz. And I'm looking at, Kevin Williams and Julie Dexter, who I actually met there. And all these other incredible musicians. India Irie is there, or Anthony David is on the scene there. And it's like this real burgeoning
soul music child.
Man, come on, Donnie. I mean, there's like so many folks. And so it had its own scene, but the rock was like, I was missing from the festival. And I was like, I want to produce a concert dedicated to, I know about Betty Davis. So people don't know who Betty Davis is. I got introduced to her through Amir, through Questlove. So I'm at Wetlands in New York. So it was before I moved to Atlanta, I was very much up on Betty Davis. And because of Questlove, he just looked at me backstage. I might have had an afro at the time. And he said, you smile with Betty Davis teeth. And I said, you saying something cute to me? He's like, you know who I'm talking about? I said, I think so. and I looked her up, and I was like, oh, yeah, she looks like my fine auntie. Like, same tribe, right? And then Quali was like, yeah, you look like her on the cover. They say I'm different. I was like, okay. I mean, it's a big compliment. She's gorgeous. I hope to one day be as fine as that. But I got to know her music, and I was blown away by her voice and her growl, and then her non-story. I was like, because hip-hop artists had sampled her. That's why they know who Betty is. Yeah. So I'm like, who is this woman that was married to Miles Davis? Who's doing all this funk rock? Who is she? Fusion. But I'm not hearing her name enough. And so I dedicated the show to Betty Davis. Black Woman Rock was the first one. I got to fly for It's Beautiful. Imani Azuri did the first show. Divinity Rocks. And I that time I didn't have all the women. At that time I brought the bands. So I brought Imani's band. Divinity was in Atlanta. And Timber Kali did my first show, and it was magic. Like, I was like, oh, I have something here. I brought Jane Spooner, Afro Punk, the film had come out, so we talked about race. We did a whole talk about race, rock and roll, and inclusion. Listen, and it never stopped. So I did it. I started in 2004. My life changed a lot. My son was born, and I left my marriage quickly after. Like, he was only 10 months old, and I came back to Detroit. So I came back to Detroit, not knowing if I was going to stay in Detroit or not. And then I realized that there were some voids here in my beautiful city.
And you could help fill.
That I could help fill. And so I became a void filler up in here, and I still am. And so I was like, I met with Juanita Moore of the Charles Trot Museum. I said, I have a concert series that I have called Black Women Rock, and I want to bring it to the museum. I think the first one, we almost gave it away. Wow. Just because we wanted to see if people would show up for a rock and roll concert at a museum. So it wasn't a concert venue, it was an educational space.
Right.
And I needed to be an educational space because the talk after the concert is actually the meat and foundation of the entire festival. Right. It's a festival weekend. Right. And so word of mouth just grew. So I did the concert here, brought everybody in, brought my crew in, and we killed, people were going to the wall, fire code. It was crazy. And so it's been nonstop for 16 years. And so, and it's grown. And I mean, I've had everybody who's everybody on the show. Nona Hendricks has done the show like 4 times, which is amazing. Cece Pennis has done the show. It's
Michelle Negiacello.
Not yet. I've asked her. I'm hoping that Michelle will come and do it for me once COVID is over and we do our first big one. Deion Ferris, has done it. Martha Redbone. I mean, I got the Master Blasters, and so my crew is real rugged and real deep and rowdy. And Nick West, who's an incredible bass player, has done the show countless times. And then Kat Dyson, who's my musical director, So Juanita and I decided for funding reasons that we couldn't afford to bring the bands in. And so how do we make this
work?
And we said, all black women. Let's get rid of the bands. And all of us, Liza Colby, who's amazing, all of us, Kia Afani Warren, who's a partner, they have a group called Susu now. Like, all of us, we play with men. I got a guy, all of us got a white boy on their bass and shit. We got a black guitar player. Like, we got brothers playing with us, right? So people feel funny away about that. They're sensitive. They got their little guitar player. And I'm like, listen, nobody bringing the bands. No men on the stage. And it changed. And then it just became like, oh man, I can't. Like San Francisco, we did Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, and we just destroyed it.
Yeah, Yerba Buena, boy. Woo.
Oh, we tore it down, man. And I was in the Bay, San Francisco. It was huge. We tore it down. It was sold out. It was crazy. Because you know what, I was there 2 weeks earlier, and I was teaching the Black on Rock curriculum that I wrote at Skyline College. So I was basically kind of coexisting between the Bay Area and Detroit, and I was in Oakland like, this is for you. Because Yerba Buena Center is going to promote in their program booklet. I made flyers and got them sent from Detroit. Got my flyers, a suitcase full of flyers. It was out there like I was 18. This for you, sis. This for you. And Oakland was in. So shout out to Oakland because they showed
Big shouts to Oakland. We used
in Black
to do,
San Francisco.
That Yerba Buena. We used to do the thing with, what's my man? Zion I. Because they used to do shows at that spot in Oakland with the kids. It was a spot really for the kids, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was a hub for the kids.
Now, Yerba Buena is definitely in San Francisco.
No, that's the big art center. Yeah. But there's another place.
I know who you're talking about. That's a dope spot. Yeah, Amiri Barak has been there. Tango Ice and Martin. I've been there with Tango.
It was a smaller space where actually it gave kids and the youth.
And they do the arts festival every year.
Sure
they bring the last poets. What's the name of the venue? It's making me mad.
Because you keep saying Yerba Buena, it's a name like that. It's like it's a Latino.
We'll remember it once it's over.
Now we've been bouncing around, but I did want to say, my first song memory of you is walking up 158th Street.
Oh, that's
not to go back to the old stuff, but
it ain't that old.
The reason for this is, I come from Dayton, Ohio, right? Yeah. It reminded me of the great Paul Laurence Dunbar's Little Brown Baby with Sparkling Eyes. That poem. Beautiful. I'm not sure if are you familiar with Paul?
Yeah, but I don't even know this poem though. I love
Little Brown Baby. It was basically, that was one of his most notable, but he was talking the vernacular of the time, and it was almost like through the eyes of the child. Okay. And it was kind of like,
little brown lady with brown eyes.
Come on, man. And you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were portraying them.
Conjuring them. Those are real people. I was walking from the 2 train to my apartment in Harlem at the time, and I saw this little brown lady with brown eyes carrying these groceries up the steps, and nobody was helping her. And I'm from Detroit, right? We from Alabama. Yeah. Okay, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. Let's keep it real. We Southern. I ain't never seen that kind of coldness towards an elder. And, it bothered me. I was like, okay, let me help the sister with her groceries. Why ain't nobody helping her with her groceries? So, and then I got off the train and I saw these twin boys kind of running past this glass, and I was living in Washington Heights, a lot of Dominicans in the neighborhood, so I was Dominican for a few years. Hold on.
I know they was like, hey,
I was straight Dominican. And I was like, all right, whatever, okay. I was Dominican and Puerto Rican. And so they're like, watching these little boys, and I was like, look at these little boys, just nobody was with them. I said, twin boys, Mexican, Indian, African, any child in America, And so I just, literally as a poet, you capture these things, and you remember them. And the white blonde lady on heroin was a real lady that lived in our building at the time. At that time I was married to my husband Sharif. At that time, because both of us knew the white blonde lady with heroin. She was funny as hell. She had great stories, but she had broken her arm. I mean, this. I'm just putting these strangers
life into you were painting that brush. You know what I mean? Of what you were definitely painting that brush.
What was that? Oh, Fat Girl, my favorite one. Fat girl. And you know that in the trumpet, Chris Johnson is playing trumpet on the record, and that's because I already written the line with the poetry. Like little brown lady with brown eyes. So the music, which is a aesthetic difference with poetry and hip hop. We have the rights to play this music.
Thank you. You do have, this is yours. That's what I'm talking about.
John Dixon, shout out. Chris Johnson on trumpet.
When I first heard this,
as blues singing,
I'm telling you, I'm Nigerian. My family's from Nigeria originally, so I'm quite Yoruba.
Yeah.
Just your griot spirit, it's matrilineal. My grandma, she was a griot of her area,
right.
And it was like those stories that they were telling me. True.
Yes, thank you. I love this. That's Blue. She's from Flint, the singer. Alicia Blue Eyes, basking. I better be right. 12 hands, carrying her groceries, children, dream, baggage, heart, memories, bullet wound, stress. OT, future, pocketbook, and temper. Up the stinky stairs of the subway station. here. Any child in America wearing Yankees jackets, playing tag, double murder, child stealers. Watch them running without worry, laughing with the sunset. How can they be so happy in this ghetto? How can they be so happy in this ghetto? Running past the preppy drug dealers. Dominican drug dealers preppy feet to avoid the green glass.
Preppy. What I tell you about preppy? They used to call me preppy when I was coming to dance with them, because I'll be riding polos, and you know what I'm saying? Preppy, so
Fat girl, fat girl, fat girl, fat girl, fat girl, fat girl, fat girl. White V-neck t-shirt,
Funny.
too small.
That's the Bonner, my trumpet player from back in the rock.
It's
in the video, but that's Chris Johnson on the actual thing. But she's the sister in the video.
right.
She read
Follow her, but she is lost on her own block. She wants to believe she is more beautiful than that block.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure that we touch on certain things. You know?
Black Tea is special. That's why the follow-up is hard. You know, like I'm doing the rock record, and I'm also working on my first real kind of hip-hop album, which is really kind of a long time coming.
I mean, that's definitely a long time coming, because
Yeah,
you've definitely been a fixture in hip-hop, period.
Yeah, thank you.
Being a total fixture.
Yeah. Shout out to Jeezy and to Nas and Common and Kweli. Yeah.
Man, you know, you touched all over
Kareem Riggins.
Yeah.
Well, Kareem is it's very special because the record on A Beautiful Revolution is really me and Kareem, you know.
Speaking of that, so that was you and Kareem, but did that come about because of summer camp? Because Common said that he wrote the album after he came to Yellow Springs and was kicking it during the summer.
Yeah, I didn't see him. I missed him, unfortunately. When I spoke to him, I was like, I just missed you at summer camp. You know, no, when he was there, me and King had just left.
Okay.
We had came for the week, and he came for the weekend. Let me say so. Kareem Riggins is the reason why that happened. Kareem and I are good friends. I was on Head Not Sweet. If you don't have Head Not Sweet, get it. Yeah, so he brought me on. You know, we did Poetry Suite together, and I just love Kareem. I mean, first of all, he's one of the baddest drummers in the land, and he's just one of my favorite people and producers. And when he sends me, like, I don't like to write the tracks. I hate it, to be honest. But when he sends me music, it makes me want to write. So I like whatever thing he's doing. It's whatever magical touch Kareem got on it. I'd be like, Kareem, you send me something, I can write to it.
Hey, listen, he puts the sprinkles on all of it. Like he puts the sprinkles on it for real.
So he wanted me on Common's past projects. He wanted me on August Green. Like Kareem's been like trying to get me on something with Common for a minute. And I think when he said Beautiful Revolution and he was looking for an intro, he's like, we got to call Jessica. And so I was like, Kareem, he's like, I want to put you on this. And they called me and I talked to them for literally just a couple minutes. And she was explaining like the concept. I was like, Beautiful Revolution, I can write that like right now. You know what I mean?
On the phone?
So I got off the phone literally and wrote it. I was like, let me just get off the phone and just do this. And then I was like, revolution is about the mirror. You know, it's about the internal space. Like I'm clear about that. Because we know it's not about being in the streets. It's not just. I mean that okay, but at some point, it's about something else. And because you can't change everybody. Right. You know what I mean? But I know I've made some impacts in some young people's lives. You know what I mean? And so that's the revolutionary thing that I know that I've done, and it's happened to me too. My life has been changed by other writers and poets and artists, and I in turn have work to change the lives of other people that come after me, and so... Speaking
of your actions, you're also one of the earliest activists championing the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, first off.
Yeah, I've been in that for a minute.
Can you tell me how this became integral in your activist work?
It's deep because I was asked by this sister to do the AIDS Walk in New York City. AIDS Walk in New York City is a huge event, like 50,000 people.
You remember what year around?
I'm trying to remember the first AIDS Walk I did. It had to have been, was I living in New York? I was living in Atlanta, so it was like around early 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a long time ago. And I've done all of them all over the country. So I've done AIDS Walks, Florida AIDS Walk, LA AIDS Walk, the Bay Area. So it's deep because I lost my friend Joseph, who was like my brother's friend. He was like my childhood crush when I was a little girl. I loved Joseph, and we lost him, and I didn't know what AIDS was. So it was in the 80s. So it was he probably died. I was in 8th grade, so I was like, I don't know, 80. I don't know. It was early. It was mid 80s, 85, 86, early. So everyone was ashamed of it then. There were no.
Yeah, it was the taboo thing to even talk about.
Because it meant okay, he's gay, okay, he's dirty, okay, whatever. People wanted to put all this.
They thought it was an automatic death sentence right then.
And then it was, unfortunately, it wasn't. We didn't have the medicine that they have now.
So I had a poem, and it was so funny because they were worried about what I was gonna say for whatever reason. I was like, I don't send poems in advance. Y'all gonna have to trust me if you want to do this. And I wrote this poem, Joseph. It's called Until We Dance, for my friend Joseph, because we used to dance in my living room. And I wrote it for him, and the people, I mean, I hadn't felt that many people with a poem, you know, in Central Park. It was 50,000 people. And Patti LaBelle sang. And Patti LaBelle, I've done it with all of the people. What's the other sister? Oh my God, her name's escaping me. You'd be so mad at me, but I've done it with all kinds of people. Laura Jones. I mean, everybody does the AIDS walk. I met so many interesting celebrities and folks. And what is it? Is it Rita? What's the actress
Rita
name?
Moreno.
Yes.
Rita
So there was a
Moreno.
year I couldn't do it, and Rita Moreno, they asked permission, and Rita Moreno read Joseph. She read the poem in LA.
Oh, wow.
I was booked already, and they said, "Do you mind if Rita Moreno reads your poem?" I was like,
"Do I mind?
Do I mind?" I gotta find the footage of that. So it was life changing because I had never hugged so many people. I mean, I hugged. People hugged me, and they were talking about Joseph. And the next year, they said the people were like, "Can Jessica come back and do the poem about Joseph?" Again. So it just made me. I mean, it just warmed my heart. So I did that poem all over the country for AIDS Walks, and then I got asked by United, the same sister whose name escapes me. I'm so embarrassed by it, but oh my God, I wish I could remember her name. She was producing, black girl, producing for the United Nations World AIDS Day. And so I got to read with Kofi Annan and in Harlem. I forgot the church. What's the church of Harlem? It's a very famous church. Not the Abyssinia. It's another one. It's one by Columbia University on Broadway. It's a huge church, and they do huge events there. It just escapes me right now. But I think they had Gil Scott-Heron's funeral there. They had Ruby Dee's funeral there, and so I did the United Nations World AIDS Day a couple of years in a row. So, you know, it just became this thing where I was attached to this movement.
I mean, you got to look forward to something when it's such a big impact.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece about women and girls and AIDS called Invisible Woman. That's in my book, God Is Not an American, because the face of AIDS changed from people thinking it's just gay white men to black women and girls. Yep. And so then Michelle Negiacello was a musical director for the Gay Men's Health Clinic, did a big fundraiser for AIDS awareness and fundraising. And she was the musical director at Carnegie Hall. And I was asked to do that. So Sean Patterson was on it, Stick and M from Dead Prez was on it. And it was amazing because of all because Michelle, I didn't get to work with Michelle, even though we hung out and saw each other, because she was musical directing, and I was the one quiet moment during the whole event. They just put a spotlight on me, and I did my piece. And so, yeah, that's... You know, and I learned, because, you know, I used to be an activist where I just felt like I had to go to every protest and be an organizer. I did that very young, like 17, 18, 19. I was doing all that work already. And I realized that my activism was really my ability to write. My writing became the weapon. I was like, you know what? And there's nothing wrong with it, because people often, and it really bothers me when activists try to play down art. Like it doesn't, like it's not powerful. Oh, yeah, that's the artist. No, you know, this shit is powerful. And to act like, you know, the thing that Sonia Sanchez and our elders fought for, like Black Studies departments and poetry and creative writing curriculums that included Black writers and poets. Like those Black arts movement poets deserve, you know, the respect for what they did for, you know, for scholarship and all the things that they fought for basically treating Black writers and poets like we matter.
Was revered.
We revered, But so I don't play it down. I know that art is a tool for social change. And I'm clear about that more than ever during the pandemic, where my voice suddenly became absolutely relevant. You know, from people that were ignoring me for years and would never call me for anything, were suddenly very interested in my perspective.
I'm just gonna say, I think that's trickled down to a few people.
Yeah, so so, you know, I said yes a whole lot, because my tour got canceled, all my money was pretty much gone, and has been gone for most of 2020, and I had to figure out a way to keep my book alive. We Want Our Bodies Back is for Sandra Bland, and so I couldn't let this book that I know is a really, really strong collection of poems for this sister. And I fought for these beautiful Black women on the cover. You know, everything's on purpose, what I'm doing, you know? And so it couldn't just... It's a form of activism. And I got the deal on HarperCollins in Amistad, you know, and I'm very happy about that. But the whole point of it was to position myself to get to more people. Right. And here I am, pandemic hits, and I'm watching all my gigs get canceled. And I switched gears on Solomon. I just started supporting independent bookstores. I started doing non-stop work on Zoom. I remember when I was in Yellow Springs with Dave.
You left to go do a Zoom.
Yeah,
You didn't come to.
man.
She didn't come to the shop for y'all. She went to go do a Zoom.
I had to go do it. They were like, "What you got to do?" I was like, "Yo, man, I got a keynote. You know,
Like,
in my hotel."
Really?
Shout out to Yellow Springs.